She is a new tech nuclear officer at the European Leadership Network in Washington, D.C.
I had the privilege of working in India's premier think tanks, in ICRIER, in Observer Research Foundation.
Her research focuses on nuclear strategy and non-proliferation and South Asian security, among other things.
A deep sense of India's emotional investment in Afghanistan.
NewsX proudly presents the VaKu Diaspora dialogue with Sylvia Mishra. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. My name is Megha Sharma, and joining me on the broadcast is a very special guest, Sylvia Mishra. She is a new tech nuclear officer at the European Leadership Network, and her research focuses on nuclear strategy and non-proliferation, Southern Asian security, grand strategy, and emerging technologies. No, she actually wears a host of hats, and we'll try to understand her comprehensive profile from Sylvia in just a few minutes of time. But it's good to have you, Sylvia, on the show.
Thank you so much, Megha, for getting me on board. It's such a pleasure to be here today.
Absolutely. And Sylvia, you have donned a number of hats. You have done so much work, research. We would like to, first of all, understand from you what motivated you to travel all the way from India to the United States and then settle down over there. Was that the American dream that pushed you towards your goals?
So I grew up in Kolkata, and I grew up in a family which was very academic. My father is a professor of international relations, and he had a profound influence and impact in my life, encouraging me to think deeply about states, societies, politics, and diplomacy. And that kind of really guided my interest to pursue national security issues and international security. I had the privilege of working in India's premier think tanks, in ICRIER, in Observer Research Foundation, and my work on India and US in defense and security issues and nuclear policy took me to work in London, in California, in Washington, D.C. I do consider myself as a global citizen, and I believe that both India and the United States, as the largest democracy and the oldest democracy, has a really special role in shaping the geopolitics of the next century. And therefore, I like to think that I'm working to advance ties between the two countries and facilitating a shared understanding between the two.
Absolutely. And you're a women's rights researcher, right from working with Ambassador Jenkins, who's the founder of the Women of Color, Advancing Peace and the Security, to have established the Indian women in international relations. In fact, I was going through your profile, and your current profile as a new tech nuclear officer at the European Leadership Network is thanks to a PR, in fact, or was it your boss who was undermining your capability to take on such a heavy subject and excel in it, and simply by the virtue of you being a woman? If you could narrate to us about all this.
Sure. Look, I believe that the economic competitiveness and primacy of any country really focuses and ensures that both men and women are equal stakeholders in advancing national security issues in that country. And because I believe in bolstering the voices and amplifying the work of women of color, of women and underrepresented minorities in the field of international relations, I took up the work of working with Ambassador, now Undersecretary Bonnie Jenkins in WCAPS. And also this kind of led me to establish the Indian Women in International Relations. It's vital that Indian women who are working in national security issues have a prominent voice and role, because it matters who gets a seat at the table. National security policies, nuclear policies affect both men and women equally, and therefore women should be equal stakeholders in formulating and shaping and navigating policies on international security and global peace and security issues.
That's a very strong point and a very strong message that you give across by virtue of being at the position that you are. And kudos for that initiative and the bravery that you showcase at your work. The crisis that is boiling, and there are a lot of these nations, including the United States and international communities like the United Nations, that are now at the verge of giving legitimacy to the Taliban government that is soon to be set up in Afghanistan. How should India at this point of time tread this entire serpentine path towards the erstwhile India-Afghanistan relationship, keeping in mind Taliban has been proscribed as a terrorist organization world over?
Look, the debate is rife, right? Whether and how and in what capacity should India engage with the Taliban-controlled Afghanistan? And as in how, like, we as analysts and scholars and academics and practitioners debate, it bears little significance, because at the end of the day, the ground reality is that we have a Taliban-controlled Afghanistan right now, and India has to find and figure ways to engage with the Taliban controlled government. As much as we really supported, and there has been a deep sense of India's emotional investment in Afghanistan, and also now the investment of almost billion remains uncertain of India's investment in Afghanistan. But however, India would need to figure ways how to engage with Taliban, because we need to see to it that we do not encourage any kind of cross-border terrorism, and especially when we see Afghanistan and Pakistan in collusion, providing a hotbed of terror networks emanating from this region.
Absolutely. That's an interesting point. I'll go ahead and delve the United Nations position politically as well as strategically world over at this very critical juncture, and how crucial does it become for the nuclear non-proliferation treaty under the current geostrategic scenario for the non-actors as well as belligerent nations. When we talk about belligerent nations, we talk about Russia, China and Iran, North Korea, refusing to abide by these. And how does the perceived diminishing clout of United States as a superpower in the world bode for the country?
Look, the nuclear policy world and the global nuclear policy community is at an inflection point. The great power rivalry is back into sharper focus in international politics. Countries are developing emerging technologies, and its integration with nuclear weapons are putting very different kinds of pressure, and it's putting pressures in terms of thinking about nuclear policy decision making. We see arms control is in retreat, and different countries are pursuing and expanding their nuclear weapons arsenal and inventory. At such a time, I think India has an important role to push non-proliferation efforts working with the United States. So far, the United States have been and has played a pivotal role in furthering the global non-proliferation regime. I do think the NPT, even though the review conference has been postponed to next year, January 2022, I think the nuclear non-proliferation treaty and the entire global nuclear non-proliferation architecture would play a pivotal role in ensuring that some of these new challenges which we see, especially the challenge of nuclear terrorism, the threat to nuclear facilities from terrorist actors, and India and the United States would have a special role in furthering and strengthening the global non-proliferation regime.
Okay, and before I let you go, Sylvia, if you could also delve on the current relationship between United States and China ever since the COVID pandemic has hit the entire world. There have been US intelligence agencies that have also come out with reports not being able to actually pinpoint the origin of the virus from the Wuhan lab that had been the massive perception of the entire world. In this sense, how are ties between India and United States going to further grow or diminish, be it trade, politics, strategic ties or investment?
As you rightly pointed out, the India-US partnership is multifaceted, right? We advance our ties not only just on defense and security cooperation, but also on trade, on education, on scientific cooperation amongst between both the countries. But I think India and the US has a special shared understanding of the threat that China poses, not only just to the region, but to the global structural architecture in the present times. And therefore, I think over time, both countries would cooperate deeply, especially to counter Chinese belligerence and assertive actions in not only just the South China Sea, but also in the Indo-Pacific. One other challenge that that China poses both to the United States and India is it's expanding its nuclear weapons arsenal. Recent reports have underscored that China is looking to expand its nuclear weapons arsenal and inventory, and also incorporating a lot of emerging technologies, especially unmanned systems, both unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned underwater drones, which poses a challenge to the Indian security establishment in the Indian Ocean region. And also these drones, which China is exporting in large numbers, can fall into the wrong hands, can fall into the hands of terrorists who can reverse engineer these drones and utilize it to carry payload, for example. So some of these challenges would really see to it that India and the United States work closely, not only just bolstering India's defense preparation, but also tightening some of the export control regimes that both India and the United States are part of.
Absolutely. I thank you once again, Sylvia, for sharing your analysis and perception about this very complex issue that the world is facing in terms of Afghanistan crisis and obviously the pandemic that has hit the country and the world. It's been a year and a half and more. I look forward to hosting you more often on my show on NewsX VaKu. But for now, thank you so much for being on the telecast.
Thank you, Megha. I really appreciate the work that VaKu is doing. All the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network.
VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community. Help support us, become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows.
You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu.
Sign up now. Log on to memboro.com/VaKu.